Sorry, we got a little mixed up.
Be
just take a minute. We continue to pray. We just continue to pray that you are our defense, that we shall not be moved as we are dealing with technical issues, as we are dealing with just all kinds of issues, Lord. That is no excuse not to enter in the presence of worship, Lord. That is no excuse, Lord, to come into your presence, into your Holy of Holies. Lord, and we build our life upon you, Lord, whether we have technology or not. Lord, that we just enter into your presence, that it does not become a distraction or a hindrance to our worship. Lord, that we just move things around. And we just come and we just ask that we just want to build our life upon you. No distractions, no distractions.
that we let things bring us anxiety and bring us fear. And we forget that you are our firm foundation, that you are our solid rock, that nothing can get to us unless you allow it to come to us. And if it's coming to us, Lord, you have a purpose in using it. So, Father, whatever we bring here to you this morning, allow us to be changed by it. Allow us to see it through your perspective, Lord, because your thoughts are so much greater than ours. Your ways are so much higher than ours, Lord. Transform us by the renewing of our minds here during worship and through the speaking out and the preaching of your word, Lord. Be effective here among us. Have your way, O Lord. In Yeshua's name.
Thank you, Lord.
Is this on? Okay. Well, because of our reliance on technology, we're going to have to adapt to this environment. And here's what here's the plan. We'll do the Torah portion up here as normal. But I prepared a message, and I have visuals. And without the visuals, it'll be hard to follow because what I'm going to go into is pretty deep. So I was going to recommend that we could all just go downstairs and I'll use the TV. I mean, there's enough of us, and the space downstairs is conducive to that. So we'll have to do this in two parts that way. Okay, we'll get started. Go ahead, keep getting yourselves coffee and drink. We'll keep it casual. All right, so again, like I said, the title of this message is He is Love and She is Wisdom. I am going to quickly review what I went over last message, right? So if we were talked about the idea of balancing judgment and mercy, and how today's perspective is mercy is good and judgment is bad, which and the fact that love is only reflected in mercy is incorrect. You know, the idea is you have to find a balance between judgment and mercy, right? There's something called tough love, and there's value to that concept of tough love. But the idea is, where on the spectrum of judgment and mercy do you go? Certain situations require certain things. And so how do you find the right balance? And the idea is that if you have too much judgment is a bad thing. If you have too much mercy, it's a bad thing. Right now, culturally, in a way, we're suffering from too much mercy. But the idea is if you have the right balance, and I compared it to plants, right? If you have all sun and no water, it's not going to survive. If you have all water and no sun, it's not going to survive. It is crucial that you have both. And that's what's wonderful about what God has created, is this dynamic of judgment and mercy. And I talked about how the idea is that, and I use the idea that, I pointed back to the Beatles' All You Need Is Love song, right? It's a good song, but it planted a misconception in a generation that has continued to today. What they did is they let go of the wisdom and they said, all you need is love, and that's just not true. They detached it from what anchored it and gave it balance. And so a really cool song kind of messed up the heads of a generation. But the idea is that you need wisdom with love to find the right balance in life. And that was the idea, and I showed, and I had a slide, I don't want to go through every slide, but all throughout Scripture, love is masculine. That's why God is love. And anytime it talks about wisdom, it refers to wisdom in the feminine and in the female. And it talks about what a treasure wisdom is. I also showed a concept here. I did update it. But and this is a message in itself. Here, this is so deep, I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg. There's probably 6 messages that could go off of this thing, and this is one of them. But the dynamic of love and wisdom, the idea of the relationship from God going down, love is a masculine act, right? We look at the Latin languages. Certain words end in A and some end in O to show feminine and masculine. I mean, I've taken Spanish years ago, so maybe someone could tell me, but sometimes house has maybe a feminine, and some other words have masculine. What is that? And the idea is that wisdom is feminine, but what is wisdom? And that's the idea of submission, because you need ultimate wisdom to ultimately submit to experience love and what that is. And so that's showing that the end, that's kind of the order of things in the Bible. And a lot of times women push back against that because they don't understand what it is. But it's cyclical. It's more than just, men are the top dogs and women aren't. No. It's more sophisticated than that. But again, that's another time. And then also another message. The idea, and I had women here, but ultimately, and I said it when I mentioned it, but I had women as the bullseye because I said ultimately everything's going down, and the treasure is wisdom. The treasure is the feminine. The treasure is the woman. But I said why, so that's why I put in here, is really life, right? God is a creator God. Everything about God is creation. That's why we have countless species, right? A complex universe. His whole modus operandi is to develop and create life. And so ultimately, women are the treasure because that's what gives birth to life, the feminine. So here we're going to get into the concept. And you're going to have to hear it through. When you first hear it, you're like, okay, but listen, it's deep and it's complicated. This is the concept, the beginning of it as we build. Men, the nature, the purpose of men, their whole being is meant to love. Like that is their grain. I think of wood. Their grain is to love. That is their ultimate purpose. Wisdom, their ultimate female, the ultimate purpose is to be wise. Wisdom, the feminine, right? So not even think of men and women. Remember, you have to think of love and wisdom as concepts. That's why I said, if you remember, I showed, as you submit up towards God, it's a feminine act. When Yeshua submitted to God, you know what's interesting? This is where the message really can go off. Yeshua came, his first coming was a female work, was a feminine work. Why? Because he submitted to the authorities of the world. How else would he have submitted to the Pharisees, to the leaders, the high priest? He submitted to Pontius Pilate, right? Complete submission. He submitted. It was a female act, the whole thing. And what did his act do? It gave birth. It created the body of Christ, the church. So it was an act of creation. When he comes again, what's he going to come in? His masculine work. He's going to be coming as the king. And that's the difference between those two acts. So I have this idea of a worldly and heavenly. And I put heavenly because to achieve ultimate wisdom and love, you have to have a dynamic and a partnership with God. It just can't be created. A lot of people in this worldly realm will confuse emotion with love and will confuse responsibility with wisdom. Those are good things, emotion and responsibility. But they can be confused with what real love and real wisdom is really meant to be. And then at the lower part is lust and foolishness, which is the opposites of, right? We're all teetering with our strengths and our weaknesses. And so, and when I say lust, this isn't just physical lust, which everyone knows men deal with, but it's lust for power, for revenge. I'm talking lust is in the desire, a negative desire to achieve something. That is the lust I'm referring to against love, right? And then with foolishness, with wisdom, and we'll get more into that as that comes along. But again, wisdom, if you're not being wise, you're behaving foolishly. But here was the kicker. This is what I thought was interesting. We all share these concepts. But what's interesting is that the male in love desires wisdom to achieve it. The female in a position of wisdom desires love. So that's why you're saying, well, we all love. We can all be wise, right? We could all be foolish. We could all have lust. But that's the concept, is that even though one is to be purposed, there's this cross desire. And that's why we embody all of this, because when we're in one position to adhere to, we're actively pursuing the other and obtaining what that is. And so that's the cross-pollination of this. So for men, because their nature is to fulfill love, right, they're susceptible. So by being loved, they're susceptible to lust, right? That's their draw. And again, physical lust for power, that negative draw, they're susceptible to it, right? And when men are unhealthy, that's where they go, right? And again, physical, whatever, the lust for power, like these, crazy dictators and all these other things, it's coming from a position of lust. And so that's where the concept, and I'm putting in, I'm going to refer to Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson, I know everyone here is aware of him. He's a fantastic thinker. Why? Because he's taking these concepts that people have learned and discovered on their own in a secular mindset and says, this is how people behave. And then he's been doing well to match it with biblical principles, right? Biblical. The only weakness that Jordan Peterson has is he's missing a deeper spiritual. Not that he's not, and not that he doesn't feel it generally, but I think you can't measure the spiritual, so it's hard to discern that. But that's the area of lust, is where the tyrannical father that he likes to talk about, a concept that was birthed out of the psychology movement in the early 20th century, is the tyrannical father. That comes out of lust. The woman, her nature is to fulfill wisdom, which makes them more susceptible to being foolish, right? And that's where men, if you look at men when they've dominated the patriarchal society, they always would position women as foolish. Where does that come from? There's this constant battle of that. But what they're not understanding is it's tied to a more abstract nature of what wisdom really is. So rather than saying, oh, that's the woman, no, that's the nature of wisdom that you have to watch out for. And we're all susceptible, and you're going to see how we get there. And the other thing about foolishness is it's not a lack of intelligence. If anything, the more educated we have become as a society, the more foolish we've become. If you think of the most foolish people in society, they're the most educated. Right? Any of the worst government systems that have been created on the planet Earth have all come from what's considered the educated class, and they've ruined and wrecked lives. That's foolishness, right? So where does that come from? But again, when a woman is behaving in the foolishness arena, she becomes, again, the devouring mother, which is another archetype that talks about, again, and this goes back all the way to all of human existence. And when you understand this pattern, as you read history and read about other things and you see this, you're going to see it explains so many aspects of the human experience. What's also interesting about this dynamic is this also explains why women mature sooner than men, right? Young women mature much faster than little boys. And that's an issue with young women who are looking for a mate. They're so immature. Right? That's a big thing. Oh, they're so immature. They are. It's not in their nature. They have to work at achieving that. And that's why right here it says emotion and responsibility. A lot of that is, your natural state is to be lustful and foolish. That's the flesh in all of its, in its raw form. Emotion and responsibility. People raise you to be responsible. And girls take to it really fast. Boys, they have to horse around. And then love and wisdom, that requires effort, right? We're all in here. We all go to service every week because we're working on these concepts to find greater love and greater wisdom. There's also this connection and parallel that we're going to dig into, is the idea that love seeks wisdom. Emotion and responsibility, that's like they're almost looking for each other. Foolishness and lust are connected. It's almost like a man becomes foolish through lust, and the woman hits lust through foolishness, right? It's almost like you have to go through these parts to cross the bridge to the other side. And so that's another thing. So let's explore the woman's desire for love, right? So by desiring and working to obtain love, actually, and this is why because it's not their nature, but they're looking to obtain love, and it's an act of work, this makes them less susceptible to lust. Because women aren't focused on the negative, they're trying to reach the positive. So they're not. So as much as they strive for love, they don't give it. But they're not susceptible to lust. But in their foolishness, they will give in to lust. Where? Why? Because they're actually seeking love, right? How many women, right, can relate to that? Is to say, look, if I want this guy to like me, if I want him to love me, I feel like I have to give into this. And it's a foolish act. That's why, like, even in cultures, there is that they try to create a system that says, in the dating scenario, right? You had to have like, what is it, chaperones and all this other stuff. That was what they were trying to control. But ultimately, women are seeking love. So that's what they're looking for in a man. They're seeking for a man to love them. And that's coming from their wisdom. Like in their wisdom, they're looking for that love. They know that they need that. And so, again, going back to Jordan Peterson, who likes to talk about these things, he talks about, there's a video out there, you have to look at it, it's very interesting. The female hero myth. What is the female? Now, the hero myth goes back to ancient times. So if you look at the legends and all these things around the feminine, the female, it all goes to this hero myth. And the core of the hero myth is basically Beauty and the Beast. That story encapsulates the female hero myth. The female is looking to take a mysterious and aggressive man and tame him, right? And so the idea is that what Jordan Peterson pointed out, he read a book that he said that the Google engineers were looking through data, of course, looking through data that searched through erotic material. What were people searching for? They said on one hand, they weren't surprised what the men were looking for, but the women was interesting. And he pointed out that their fantasies revolved around 5 characters, right? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. The vampire. So they're either vampires, werewolves, billionaires, pirates, or surgeons, right? But the concept is, it's the bad boy, right? The woman is intrigued by the bad boy, right? That's why when the good kids were like, why are these bad guys getting all the female attention? There's something within the woman that's looking for that aggressive nature in the man, knows the value of that aggressive nature in the man, because the way he put it is that when chaos, Jordan Peterson, when chaos shows up, they know they need a man that has that level of aggression to meet it, right? But they're looking to tame. And so that comes to this idea of what they're looking to do. So they're looking to tame the protector and the provider, because they know that eventually they'll need to tap into that aggression. If a guy is too nice, sometimes a woman thinks he's not going to stand up to the plate when the time comes when things go wrong. The other side of it. So men are looking for love, wisdom. And so in their desire to obtain wisdom, so with the other, real quick, this is the dynamic why people feel women are more interested in love, right? When you see love is masculine, it almost doesn't make sense, because love is what women talk about the most. Romance novels, all the romance movies are targeting towards women. Men can't be bothered. So really, that's here. Wait, I lost my. It was so they can become more loving because they're actively working to obtain it. They're, you know what I mean? Like men just like, okay, whatever. This is who I am. Women are like, no. I want this, and I'm going to do what it takes to get it. So the same thing with men, right? So they're desiring wisdom. So that is why men, if you look through history, tend to come off as more wise and intelligent, because they're the ones that are actively looking to figure things out. How do things work? How to understand. They're actively pursuing that. Where women sort of embody and live it, men are almost like, I want to even understand more. So there's that drive. And so that's where men become foolish, because in your striving for wisdom, and that's where like even men today, like these educated men are behaving really foolishly. So in their pursuit of ultimate wisdom, they've not had that, the godly connection to what wisdom is. And so it gets disconnected. And so they find themselves in foolishness. And we're also in a world where things had flipped. So right today they call foolishness good and wisdom evil. That's where we're at. So what's the male hero myth? Right? Again, the female hero myth was the Beauty and the Beast. The male hero myth is to slay dragons, overcome obstacles to obtain a treasure. And mostly it's either like a treasure or a woman, mostly, right? Men are trying to save the damsel, right? The damsel in distress, and the hero saves her. Again, that's all taps into the hero myth. And so that is why in the Bible, wisdom is referred to as a treasure, because to the man, That is the ultimate treasure, because there's something, and it's almost like people don't understand this. And this is where like the psychologists like to talk about the subconscious. I get that, but that's what I'm saying. There's this deeper grain in the men and the women that controls their decision making on a deeper level that they don't understand, but yet they behave in these ways. So what happens, right? So there's the idea of lust, right? So men, right? When men are in an unhealthy, lustful place, who are they looking for? Well, foolish women, right? And so more and more in society, there's just more and more foolish women, right? So men don't have to hunt as hard as they used to for foolish women. But when the man is ready to marry, who is he looking for, right? This is where the double standard comes from, right? The women say, hey, you guys have a double standard on us women, right, with this stuff. But in his nature, he doesn't want to, he's looking for the woman who spent the least amount of time in the foolish phase dealing with people's lusts, right? I mean, everyone knows what I'm talking about, trying to keep it, you know. But that's really what it is. That, you know, when they're young and lustful, yeah, I'll take whatever, any foolish woman I can get. Time to get married? No. You know, I want someone who's been more responsible. It's in their nature. Because ultimately, there's something within them that's looking for wisdom and understanding. The woman, when she's ready to marry, what is she looking for? She's looking for a responsible guy. You know, someone who's going to do what it takes to get things done. And she's also looking for an emotional guy who's going to meet her emotional needs, because ultimately she wants that loving connection. And so that's why women's frustration with that's, you know, with finding when they're looking for a partner, right? That's also why younger women tend to marry older men, because they're more responsible. And that's also why, remember we were looking at those themes that they were looking for, the billionaire, the surging. That's why they were saying a man, if he's financially well off, he has no trouble finding a woman. And even Jordan Peterson would talk about that, right? Because a woman says, this guy's going to provide for me. He's going to give me a good life. That's what I'm looking for. He may not be the most attractive guy, right? You have all these, somewhat unattractive musicians or movie stars with these really attractive women. Why? Well, because they're successfully financially. And so when we look at relationships, divorce, right? Once you're in that relationship, why do most women, almost 70% of women, divorces are initiated by women, right? And why is that? Because a woman, to the woman, they want love, but it's almost like because it's not a part of their grain, they will, if the man isn't meeting that level of responsibility or love, right? Emotional, like, hey, you're not being emotional enough, but it's really around responsibility. Like, you don't provide, you're just all the areas. It always, you could see if you look at what the reasons are around divorce, that women are saying, why I want to divorce you. It's always tied to that idea of responsibility that they're not meeting. The other kicker is that men have a harder time in divorce emotionally, because it is their core, it is their grain. Like, they're so emotionally tied to it, and there's that loyalty to it. So what's interesting, and this kind of came to mind, and I kind of laughed at it. A woman will say in these tough situations, right, if in a divorce, I love you, but ... right? I love you, but here's a list of things you're not doing, right? A guy will say ... but I love you, right? So you'll get some of that, like, what do I got to do? I love you, like, I'll change, and of course they don't change, and there's always other things. But that's also, again, the women are initiating a divorce because there's this core idea of responsibility and wisdom within them that says this guy is not meeting this. So, kind of getting back, and we're going to dig into this. Now, lust and foolishness are these negative traits, okay? And there was a rabbi I heard on YouTube, and I thought he gave a brilliant analogy. He said, the head should rule the heart, and both should rule everything below it, which is like the flesh, the lower regions, the guts, the body. And I thought that's pretty intelligent, right? The head rules the heart, and both rule the flesh. What do you get? What happens if we can achieve love and wisdom, right? And again, no one achieves ultimate anything, right? We all struggle with these things. Everyone, even if they're in this loving place, every day is a battle. Every day you take your cross to try to stay out of lust, to stay out of foolishness. It's constant. It's a constant battle. But what happens if you can
gain a basic control at that higher level, what happens to the lower level? They switch. Lust becomes ambition. Foolishness becomes fun and humor. So the dynamic is that a wise woman will call forth the ambition out of the man, right? Out of love. And then, because that's right, they're the goal. Like if the hero wants to go save the woman, right? There's this, it draws this ambition that I need to go save. A loving man will bring forth the balance to wisdom with humor and fun in relationship, right? And everyone in the dating phase of a relationship, it's always fun, right? There's that dynamic. Why is that important, though, fun and humor? Well, number one, it makes life more enjoyable, right? Don't we want to enjoy life? It just makes life more fun. Another one is that, so psychologist, this Jean Piaget, who's a Swiss psychologist, did some research and found the nature of play is important to the development of children. And you see it in animals, puppies, kittens, even in the wild. They like to play. That's how they learn the world around them without being put in danger. And that's important to the healthy development of a child, to have a positive, loving, fun family. So, again, why do men are seen as more wise or intelligent? Because they're striving for it. And another aspect is why do you see more men comedians? Think about that. There's more men comedians out there. Comedy is actually almost an aspect of wisdom, right? Not it's a godly wisdom, but there's an understanding of life that a comedian can draw out and tickle everyone's funny bone, because everyone always says in a joke, there's an element of truth to it, or you wouldn't laugh. So there is an element of wisdom. It's because men are pursuing these things, right? Women. So why are women seen as in love? And again, the idea of romance novels, they're drawn to that is because they strive for it. That's why they're seen more as in love than men, because they strive for it. But I would also say, and I challenge you, women are more ambitious than men. They really are. Think about it. Because women are business in a relationship, right? When they're looking for that guy, they're looking for that responsible guy. And there's the challenge. And in fights between couples, a lot of it is the woman saying, you're not being responsible in these areas. You're not ambitious enough. You need to do these things to provide for the family. Because in her nature, she knows in order to have a good family life or to have kids and rear them upright, that she needs her man to be ambitious, to go out there and hunt and get food and do whatever it takes, right? So they draw that out. But they're more ambitious, and they're ambitious in how they go after men. There's an ambition there. So that is a dynamic I think people don't appreciate, is that women are technically, and I would say, think about it, they are more ambitious. Now, the dynamic we were talking about with the hero myths, the woman seeks to seduce and tame the aggressive male and civilize him, right? They're after the aggressive male to civilize him, right? And that's the hero myth, the female hero myth. They're taking that guy, that dangerous guy, and making him civilized. That's her role. What happens when women are successful and get men to be ambitious? Civilizations are built. And remember, I said this years ago at Olivia's bat mitzvah. I talked about how women really set the tone for how a culture is, because they really have this deeper control that's not appreciated because the influence they have over men, right? And when you look at civilizations and these aggressive men, it could be tied to who the mothers were. Like everyone thinks about, as a spouse, but really it's the mothers that are raising these children who are going forth. Like if you look at cultures and civilizations that have expanded, you look at the mothers and how they raise these kids. And so that's why if women can successfully civilize their men, civilizations are built. So now let's look more biblically at this concept. And again, it's amazing. You read this thing and you start to laugh. So here's what this harkens back to. Why did this serpent go after Eve and not Adam? Why, right? What was he offering? This is Genesis 3:6, and this is the Tree of Life version. I didn't alter these words. Now the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a thing of lust for the eyes, and that the tree was desirable for imparting wisdom. So she took of its fruit and she ate, and she also gave it to her husband, was with her, and he ate. The serpent knew that the very nature of the woman was wisdom. So the serpent appealed to that nature of the female. But in order for her to, again, the fall was a foolish act. It wasn't wise. So she gave in to lust. So she entered a foolish phase of her being to cross over to lust and make that mistake. But it was her nature that serpent was speaking to. The guy was probably too dense. They're not thinking about that, but I'm saying that really explains why he's speaking to her. She wanted to know, it's important for me to know this in order to continue on and have, whatever is part of that female nature. Next, we're going to talk about King David. Now, what's interesting is, why does God say of David and no one else in the Bible, he's a man after his own heart, even when he sinned, right? Everyone's like, wow, David did some bad things. Why would he be a man after God's own heart? It's because I submit to you that he fulfilled that love concept of the male more fully than anyone in the Bible, right? And we're going to go down this list, and you can see the list goes from the top of love, works through emotion, and goes to the end. He loved God. He loved Jonathan, Absalom. There's a lot of people that David loved. He wrote the Psalms. He wrote love poems, right? He was so in touch with his loving core self. He danced for the Lord, emotions, played instruments, expressing emotion. He wept, right? He was always weeping. So that, again, he was in touch with that deep emotion. But, right, now he's ambitious. He's that great warrior, right? He defeats Goliath and he conquers, right, 10,000s upon 10,000s, however that went. But, right, his weakness was with Bathsheba. So again, we all fight with that. But he probably loved more and more strongly than anyone else in the Bible, and that's what God wanted. Now, right, so if we look at love, and again, if we think of love and wisdom as concepts, not just individuals, who would be the next person to look at, right, for wisdom? Yeah, easy one, right? All right, King Solomon, a generation later, shows you how things could change in a generation. Most wise, built a temple. It was a wise thing to do. Proverbs, he wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and it talks about what you should do, right? These acts of wisdom, right? Not emotional, hey, here's a strategy for life. Concerned about duty, focused on obligation, built up his wealth. He was responsible with his wealth. The idea of enjoyment, so that was where fun and humor. I'm thinking, well, where's the fun and humor go in? Now, the word enjoy or joy is used in the Bible. But when you try to say, well, how about the word of that as in just a concept about having fun, right? And it's only found 3 times in the Bible, the idea of enjoyment, being called to enjoy. And it's only in Ecclesiastes. Again, it's tied to the wisdom character, right? That idea of fun enjoyment. And then the heart was led away from other gods. Again, his wives, that female voice drew him into that area. But again, with this concept, it was from that lustful place, which again, he had so many wives and concubines and et cetera, et cetera. It was that unhealthy channel, which God said in Bible, right? He said the kings don't have too many wives. So it's almost like his lust for all that brought him to listen to this voice that caused him to actually lose the kingdom, his sons to lose the kingdom after him. So those are some concepts there. So I'm coming down to the end here, and I'm going to go over the scripture. I'm going to show you the 2 scriptures that, to me, it really hit home. Like I said, I was doubting myself, like, maybe this is just my own imagination. And so I was reading in Jeremiah 3:20, and this was around the time where God kept referring to Israel as the harlot and like all female language, right? All using that Israel is this female entity. And here it said, yet as the woman betrays her lover, so have you betrayed me, O house of Israel. It is a declaration of Adonai. And what stuck out to me, I'm like, there it is. You keep talking about the harlot, the female aspects of Israel, but then he mentions he's the lover, the masculine, right? The love. But then I remember, and as I read them, I'm like, there it is. Wow. Now, in order to unlock this, I'd have to find somewhere in the Bible where he's showing that feminine aspect of Israel and calling it foolish. Not just the next chapter over. For my foolish people have not known me. They are foolish and senseless children. They are wise to do evil. Again, we flip. But to do good they have no knowledge. And there it was. I thought, there it is. Like, who knows? You'd have to search the entire Bible to find this stuff. And it was a 1-2 punch in one reading and one sitting. And I said, all right, you win. Like, this is obviously not fully my imagination. So this is the last slide. So what I'm going to end on is where this comes from is the idea that we live in a generation where a lot of young people have lost their compass, right? We all can appreciate and understand that. They suffer from anxiety and depression in greater numbers than anyone, again, maybe in ancient times there was a period, but no one's seen this before. And so young men and women are lost right now. And so when you're interacting with them, it's one thing to say, well, I'm lost and depressed. And you're like, well, God's the answer. That's true, but that's too abstract and they can't relate to it. It's a concept that they just can't touch. Like just to say, well, God's the answer, turn to God. They're not going to connect. But what we need to understand is help them understand is that men, if they can understand this concept that as a man, you need to embody your love in what you're looking to achieve, how to focus on how to obtain love in order to conquer the negative, lustful aspects of it. And the idea of embracing love as a concept that is an actual commitment to the woman, right? Because right now it's even like they're saying marriage numbers are going down. And this has happened before. And like I said, I've shared this in the past. In ancient times where marriages start to break down. And then they come back again. But the idea of commitment, because that's what God is, right? God is love. And what does he seek? He seeks to form covenant relationship, right? And commitment. And even to Israel, right? With all that they've done, he stays committed. And that's that heavenly love that he's just demonstrating. And then for the woman, the female, to embrace the idea of embodying wisdom to help them overcome their foolishness, right? To giving into aspects like almost to navigate life better and just to make better decisions and to draw on that idea of wisdom and how to manage men and understand like what they're trying to get out of a man, which is a committed partner and one that is ambitious, because not only will they do good for the family, but a group of ambitious men will do good for a community, will do good for a city, will do good for an entire civilization, right, and culture. So that's my message. Usually I feel like a lecture. I would say any questions, but no questions. You can ask me afterwards. So you want to do the Aaronic blessing? Do you happen to know that off by heart? So we'll end it with the Aaronic blessing. See, that's fun and humor, folks.
Please stand. Yivarechacha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai penvelecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai penvelecha v'yasemlecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Amen. Shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.